When you're out on the water, you don't want a fancy screen that looks good on paper. You want something that actually works day after day, that won't make you second-guess a turn, and that feels like a solid part of your routine rather than a gimmick you're constantly fiddling with. That's the mindset that pops up every time someone hesitates at the checkout line for a marine chart plotter. You're weighing the cost against the promise of reliable navigation, wondering if the unit will actually hold up when you're chasing a school of bass at sunrise or simply trying to find a safe anchorage after a long day. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The Garmin GPSMAP 8616xsv is marketed as a 16-inch Alanone solution with built-in Navionics mapping and sonar. What that really translates to in everyday use is a large, bright touchscreen that you can glance at from your helm, plus the ability to toggle between traditional and scanning sonar without swapping hardware. The first thing I notice when you power it up is the HD IPS panel colors are vivid enough that you can read depth contours even under bright sunlight, and the touch response feels solid, not flaky like some cheap tablet-style units. That matters when you're trying to make a quick course correction while a fish is biting. Setting it up on a small boat is straightforward. The mounting kit snaps onto the console and the unit sits at an angle that minimizes glare. The Grid 20 remote control that comes with it adds a nice backup for when you prefer physical buttons over touch, especially if you're wearing gloves or your hands are wet. In my testing, the remote's layout is intuitive. Pressing zoom or pan gives you smooth, predictable movement across the chart, and you never feel lost trying to find the right key. For a first-time buyer, that simplicity can be a real confidence booster compared to more complex rigs that require you to learn a maze of menus before you can plot a waypoint. Now let's talk about the sonar side. The unit supports both traditional single beam and scanning sonar, which means you can switch from a basic depth readout to a more detailed image of what's below you with a tap. In a real-world scenario, say you're dropping a line near a submerged structure, the live sonar feed gives you a quick visual cue that the depth is changing, letting you avoid snagging. The downside is that the scanning mode can be a bit demanding on the battery if you run it continuously, and you'll notice a slight lag when the unit processes a high-resolution image on a cluttered bottom. If you're the type who spends hours on the lake just cruising, you'll want to be mindful of that and perhaps turn off scanning when you don't need it. One of the biggest questions people have is whether the mapping data is truly up to date. Garmin's Navionics Plus charts are generally refreshed every few months, which is fine for most inland and coastal waters but can be a concern if you venture into rapidly changing sandbars or newly charted harbors. In practice, I found the charts to be accurate enough for routine trips, but I'd still carry a paper backup or a secondary GPS if you're navigating in a region known for shifting shoals. That's a small extra step, but it's worth noting before you count on the unit alone for safety. Who should consider buying this? If you're a weekend angler who wants a single display that handles both navigation and sonar without having to mount two separate pieces of equipment, the GPSMAP 8616xsv hits a sweet spot. It's also a good fit for small to medium boats where space is at a premium. Everything you need lives on one 16-inch screen, and the mounting kit doesn't dominate your console. On the other hand, if you're a professional charter captain with multiple vessels, or if you demand high-end multi-beam sonar and advanced networking capabilities, this model will feel limited. The lack of built-in Wi-Fi for easy chart updates and the modest processing power for heavy sonar loads are the kind of hidden trade-offs that become frustrating in a commercial setting. From a value perspective, the unit's price sits in the mid-range for marine chart plotters. You're paying for Garmin's brand reputation, the large touchscreen, and the bundled remote. The practical value comes from the fact that you won't need separate sonar and chart devices, which saves you both money and installation hassle. However, the single rating of 1 out of 5 stars on Amazon suggests that at least one buyer had a seriously negative experience, perhaps a hardware defect or a mismatch between expectation and reality. That single low rating is a red flag and worth investigating. Check the return policy, see if there are firmware updates, and read any comments for clues about the issue. In terms of daily usability, the unit shines when you're on a short fishing trip or a relaxed day on the lake. You can plot a waypoint, turn on live sonar, and watch the depth change as you approach a